People often think of emotions as private, but I think that there is such a thing as public emotion, and that is concerned with what happens to us and what we feel in our community and in the public realm. We work, we do politics together, and we produce and engage in arts and culture. The first two are necessary, and they come with a lot of suffering quite often. But the third set, arts and culture, is what brings us together for a positive experience. It's what comforts us. By arts and culture, I mean the broad set of experiences, including pop culture, high art, community art, folk art, and local customs. In Eastern Europe, between 1945 and 1990, we haven't owned our culture, and we haven't really fully claimed it back ever since. But for what emotions do we need an outlet in Eastern Europe? How did the totalitarian communist regimes in Eastern Europe affect Eastern Europeans' emotions? With their doublethink, lack of any consideration for the individual's emotions, but full control of the individual's behavior, the totalitarian regimes in Eastern Europe made people fearful. They made Eastern Europeans not trust each other. They made them cynical, and they inspired hopelessness and despair in them. Svetlana Alexievich, the Belarusian author who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2015, has illustrated how this happened in one crucial instance, the Chernobyl catastrophe. Her nonfiction book, The Chernobyl Prayer, is a series of interviews with the survivors from the nuclear explosion, with firemen and factory workers and administrators' families. One of the people she interviewed is Lyudmila Ignatenko, the wife of fireman Vasily Ignatenko. She was only 23, and she was heavily pregnant when her husband got a call in the middle of the night and was told that he had to go and stop the fire at the nuclear plant in their town in Chernobyl. He wasn't told that there was a radioactive explosion. He didn't take any special coat in order to protect himself from the radioactivity. He just went there in a t-shirt and in his usual clothes. He died 4 weeks afterwards, and his organs grew out of him from the radioactivity. Their child died 2 hours after it was born because it had attracted all of the radioactivity from the mother's body. Soon afterwards, Lyudmila got a medal which proclaimed Vasily Ignatenko, her husband, as a hero of USSR. But at the funeral, she wasn't allowed to touch him at all. She was told that this is not your husband anymore. This is a radioactive object. And this is just one instance which shows the negligence and the abuse of the totalitarian communist regimes in Eastern Europe and how they treated the individual. Alexievich goes later in the book to say that Chernobyl changed people's outlook on life because they weren't aware of this negligence and abuse. They were told that the USSR nuclear plants are the safest on the planet, that in fact they are that safe that they could be built even in the Kremlin. Their sense of security got crushed. They became confused, they felt betrayed and powerless. But beyond merely reflecting how USSR in this instance abused and neglected its citizens, Alexievich also gives a voice to the so-called little people. She builds a most important monument, a testimony of history through the voices of the people who have actually felt radioactivity on their skin and not just on paper. She gives them a chance to tell their story. And this is key because alongside making Eastern Europeans feel powerless, fearful and depressed, the totalitarian regimes in Eastern Europe also took away one of the most important weapons available to the individual, and that is producing and engaging in arts and culture that resonates with them. Before 1990, the communist totalitarian regimes monopolized all culture and made people in Eastern Europe lead two lives, one at the parade, an official life, and the other one in the kitchen, their truthful life. The number of people with whom Eastern Europeans could share what they actually believe and feel reduced drastically. In communist Romania, 1 in 2 priests were informants. They collaborated with the secret police. So you went to the priest because you wanted a relief from the state, but all you got was the state itself. In this way, the public space became an official space in which one obeyed, not a shared community space to which one can contribute. After the fall of communism, the newly independent republics stopped supporting culture. Beyond culture funded by the state, we had lost the local traditions that brought communities together. Our muscle of making culture got atrophied. Our private initiative had been suppressed. And many people blame this lack of support of the post-1990s republics on poverty. So our countries are too poor in order to support the arts and the culture in them. But actually, peasant societies were not luxurious, yet they had a whole set of traditions in place that reinforced values, that comforted people in distress, and simply brought people together in a community. Take, for instance, the Romanian tradition of șezătoare, which is a winter custom where women gather in the same space to weave rugs together. Could we have the video, please?
Este o șezătoare de neveste în comuna Părău din raionul Făgăraș, unde se mai păstrează acest frumos obicei.
So people in this video mix necessity with pleasure. In order to make rug weaving easier, they call for help, but at the same time they're making their time more beautiful and more pleasant by singing together, storytelling, and also at the end there's a dance that we don't have time to see. Now, to be fair on the communist regimes and USSR in particular, even during the Soviet times, in every single village of every single Soviet republic, there was an orchestra or a choir or a sports team in which the communities took pride. But, you know, and they participated in regional and national competitions, and they played for other communities of tractor drivers and milkmaids and so on. But these were not private initiatives. They were these activities were initiated by the state. So once USSR collapsed, the practices died. And it's true that in the past 26 years, our cities have become better. They have been reviving their cultural life. But the problems reside in the countryside where most Eastern Europeans live, where they are left with their own personal drama. And some people find, you know, a few devoted Christians find comfort in the church. But most of them find comfort in alcohol or TV. And indeed, according to the World Health Organization's 2014 statistics, Moldova, Poland, Russia, and Belarus are amongst Europe's heaviest drinkers. TV's most popular programs are soap operas, produced in Turkey or Latin America in many countries, alongside political news programs and political talk shows. But with political news, a lot of television is still owned by political parties in many Eastern European countries, so that means that people get even more manipulated and they get to feel even more powerless and even greater victims to the politics of their state by watching political shows. And now, I know that my grandparents, for instance, have become more expressive. They have started to express their love more since watching Latin American soap operas. And I think that's wonderful. But soap operas also replace people's own feelings. They happen to someone else and somewhere else. And this has not been the case in Western Europe, where both state-supported culture and private initiatives have been ongoing since the Second World War. When I went to the Isle of Man on a scholarship, a headmaster's scholarship to do my sixth form there, I was surprised to see how active school life was there. There was always some choir happening, a theater play being put on, a classical music concert or team sports being played. And this was not just the heart of the school community, but it was at the heart of the entire community of the Isle of Man. So people from outside the school, adults, came to watch these plays. And I think that this culture was encouraged by the International Baccalaureate Diploma itself, so by the system, because we had to actually do 40 hours of creativity, 40 hours of community service, and 40 hours of sports as part of our diploma, which is wonderful. And we need this richer community life to be happening consistently in Eastern Europe as well. Through it, we create another experience for ourselves, a positive experience, and we empower ourselves. And this is a wonderful example of a cultural event. And I've been rehearsing in your dressing rooms, and I've seen that there's a musical going on next week as well. And this is all really wonderful, but I ask you and beg you as students, when you graduate this university, that you take this spirit of initiating culture outside in the communities that you will join. Because we need to initiate events and we need to create policies and systems that will perpetuate these events. Otherwise, life will happen to someone else and it will happen elsewhere, and we will only watch it on a television screen. Thank you.